Mr. Deputy Speaker, Mr. President, honourable members of this House, fellow South Africans, a developmental state, which is what South Africa is pursuing, is one that is determined to influence the direction and pace of economic development by directly intervening in the development process rather than relying on the uncoordinated influence of market forces to allocate resources. The establishment of social and economic goals to guide the process of development and social mobilization is critical, as reflected in the NDP. The reconstruction of South Africa's industrial capacity is essential, and manufacturing has been identified as the critical instrument to drive the industrial policy action plan. Localization, local procurement with enabling legislation, and strategic designations. South Africa's challenges, as you pointed out, Mr. President and SONA, are poverty, high unemployment, and inequality. However, Mr. President, as you acknowledged, we can address this through increased labor-absorbing economic growth. Statistics South Africa's figures for December show that the current unemployment rate is currently at 26.7. So creating labor-absorbing economic growth calls for a commitment for all sectors of the economy, the public and private sector, so that we are able to work together, including agro-tourism and processing and tourism. The presidency of President Ramaphosa in the steps of Mandela has ushered in an era defined by integrity, selfless service, commitment, and one that has never tolerated the plunder of public resources nor the theft by corporate criminals of hard-earned savings of ordinary people. The manufacturing sector has the largest multiplier effect of all sectors in the economy, meaning for every R1 of investment, there's R1.13 in real value. Now, between September and December 2017, 1.8 million people were employed in this sector. And the GDP, it contributed manufacturing 13.7. But in recent years, due to domestic and international issues, South Africa has experienced slow growth. So government has seen the need to stimulate the sector from domestic demand, leveraging government expenditure through the local procurement policy. The ANC's vision for the South African economy is guided by the Freedom Charter and the clarion call that the people shall share in the wealth of our country, and a country wanting to create a developmental state, we know, uses state resources to address poverty and expand economic development. Now, one of South Africa's greatest resources is its buying power through government expenditure, which local procurement policy aims to do. It aims to capitalize on this and the state-owned entities as well, including public infrastructure investment. Government spending on locally produced goods will increase local demand and significantly expand local suppliers, leading to economic growth. A strong domestic demand for local production ensures that all local manufacturers build their capacity by supplying local demand and developing competitiveness for exporting their products. So goods produced in South Africa, and never let us forget this, creates jobs and more jobs. So we are using yet another very sharp instrument, namely designations in local procurement. Local public procurement focuses on goods that the government procures mostly for its service delivery. And we need national, we need provincial, we need municipalities, we need state-owned entities, we need all departments in the public sector to be totally committed to this. Now, already in South Africa, we're focusing on key industrial sectors: rail, rolling stock, bus fleets, transport, infrastructure, automotive, clothing, textiles, leather, and footwear. Why are we doing this? Because these are the products that the South African government buys the most of. It buys the bedding and clothing for hospitals, uniforms and shoes and cars for the police and the Defence Force. But there are many other issues. There's bus bodies, canned processed vegetables, rail rolling stock, textiles, clothing, solar water heaters, set-top boxes, certain pharmaceutical products, furniture products, electric and telecom cables, residential meters, etc. And what we all have, wheelie bins. In the tenders, when South Africa plans to buy these goods, we will ensure, in the government of President Ramaphosa, that the changes in state-owned entities ensure that all tenders will be very specific on locally manufactured products with prescribed minimum thresholds. We know that the Regulation 14 and preferential procurement deals with non-compliance. But no, we don't want to wield the whip every 5 minutes. We know you know this. And we believe that you will, in this new government, with the new leadership, you will feel willing to implement this. The organ of state can cancel the contract if there is non-compliance. Never let us forget that. The public procurement bill that is now being led by National Treasury is going to tackle the area of non-compliance. And this will be beefed up, including areas for non-compliance. But let us not just point to the issues that have beset us. But yes, there have been successes. The bus recapitalisation scheme and the textile industry, right here in the Cape, was so depressed at one stage. And where is it now? It is managing to compete more effectively. However, government cannot impose localization policy on the private sector, and this is under the World Trade Organization rules. But what we are going to do, we are going to persuade the private sector that it is in their own interests to increase their profits and to actually pursue our own retailers and manufacturers and buy local. Because what will this achieve? The goods are here on the spot. You don't have to wait for them. They're right here. So we need to set up that synergy and encourage the private sector. We also, there's enough incentives at the moment. The Public Finance Management Act of 1999 provides a regulatory framework for supply chain management at national and provincial, and the municipality does it with the Municipality Act. Then we have other issues. I mentioned designations and how sharp this is. We have already designated 21 products, and we will continue to designate more strategic products because localization will create a more inclusive economy. We want a more inclusive economy. The Black Industrialist Program is going a long way in accelerating radical economic transformation and changing the ownership patterns of the country's economy, and ensuring that Black industrialists are not simply confetti, but play a meaningful role in the manufacturing sector. 500 million has been spent on those incentives with 30 Black industrialists to date. But let us come to tourism. a labor-intensive sector. And may I interrupt my input at this point to convey my condolences, my deepest condolences, to the family of the late Beatrice Nkobo, who often assisted me with my Zulu. We got to know each other very well. She was passionate about tourism. She was passionate with her work in the community, and she will be a great loss to her community, to this Parliament, and to her family, no doubt. So my deepest condolences there. Indeed, tourism is a labor-intensive sector with many spin-offs, never mind the FDIs and so on, but there are many opportunities in the SMMEs. Guest houses, bed and breakfast, hotels, lodges, backpackers and the like, tour operators and so on. Currently, we may not realize this, but there are 7,000 direct jobs. Put in the multiplier factor and what do you get? Almost double. It is part of the services sector, and we know globally the services sector is becoming more and more important. But we have a comparative advantage. We have the most beautiful countryside and the most hospitable people from every province and group. We have a huge variety of fauna and flora, and we may have forgotten that we actually have, I think it is 9 heritage sites. Apart from that, we are one of the most sought after conference and sporting areas for huge conferences and various other events. Now, I believe, Mr. President, we can enhance the support for tourism in this area by asking all South Africans to open not only their homes, but their hearts up to the world. We are passionate about this. And may I add that last year, we increased the number of tourists by 12.8%. And we are going to step up security. The ANC conference has resolved that security for tourists must be revisited in our policies as visa requirements. We've taken this at the African National Conference. But then may I say, yes, we are not content just to promote it. We need radical transformation. As Mandela said, there is no easy walk to freedom. So too, there is no easy walk to radical transformation. So our government, the ANC government, is asking all of us to join hands. A new dawn is here. President Ramaphosa is restoring hope and ushering in a new era. Now, President Ramaphosa, vodotendelana, nana he huri, he zwi inga itikwe, kuina inga, kwai fata mushumo minji. I thank you.